Another important thing to emphasize about nicotinic cholinergic receptors is that there's a sort of an ideal level of stimulation, for these receptors at synapses, and when you add in an agonist like nicotine, you can overstimulate these receptors. In fact, it turns out that most smokers, if they smoke regularly, throughout the day, they tend to maintain on board, titrate a very, very consistent level of nicotine, throughout the day, and one at which many of these receptors in the brain have actually sort of desensitized to their effect. So that means that too much stimulation of this nicotinic cholinergic receptor that normally, when acetylcholine binds, for example, will open a channel and allow for sodium or sodium and calcium to come in and depolarize. It will suddenly shift its shape with overstimulation by the nicotine and the acetylcholine, too much stimulation, shift its shape so that it's out of commission for a while. It'll stop responding. It desensitizes, and this is actually the mechanism of toxicity, for nicotine, and also for nerve gases like sarin, and also for these neonicotinoid pesticides that are being used in many places and are killing not only the insects that prey on crops, but also apparently bee colonies, etc., and other very beneficial insects. So that nicotinic cholinergic receptor desensitization is an important aspect of the response, basically to nicotine. Think about this though too, like if somebody smokes on a regular basis, and they basically have been smoking all day and then they go to sleep. Well, the next morning when they wake up, they don't have nicotine on board. People are often very driven, for that first cigarette of the day. It basically has lots of, upregulated, nicotinic receptor targets presynaptically localized on neurons that release dopamine and norepinephrine and serotonin and acetylcholine. And, the first cigarette, it gets in there and it, initially provokes massive sort of depolarization and lots of release of these, neurotransmitters. It's the best cigarette of the day is what I'm told. And then, from then on, it becomes, it's more, psychologically addicting to some extent, but it doesn't have that same impact as that first withdrawal relieving cigarette.